Hey all, welcome, welcome. Right on the hour for me. Let's jump right in. I'm Jenny Sauer. I'm a mobile solutions specialist with the End User Tools Group, and we are here to present the Spotted Lanternfly survey, and it's in parentheses combined all in one map, all these types of surveys, data collection using ArcGIS Field Maps. That's the application. I've got a little schedule here that I'm going to try really hard to keep to. It's going to mean that I'm going to move pretty fast to provide a break between each. So if you're here for all four types of surveys, don't worry, I'm going to give you as many breaks as I can. My voice is also super failing today, so please bear with me. I'm going to do my best. I might have to save my voice with some videos. Each one of these layers, if you're staying for all four, is going to have some repeated information for the first 10 minutes at least. So if you feel like you can't handle it and you don't want to hear me say it again, it's not going to hurt my feelings if you jump in and out of this Zoom call at all. I won't even pay any attention to it at all. In fact, I would encourage it to keep your sanity. So we're going to get started today with the site plans. Sometimes you all refer to it as property assessment. And then at 1:30 Eastern time, we'll talk about treatment surveys. There are points and areas that can be collected. 2:05 is going to be trapping and trapping activities. 2:35 will be visual surveys. And we also have a couple of layers that allow you to take some notes. So that's the map notes points and map notes areas layers. So we'll talk about those at the end. We're going to start with property assessment. A couple of things that you need to know on your own. So I'm giving that a little, that's what we're on right now. You can also tell by the bottom of the slide, I've added, the topic there. Hopefully that helps us stay on track today. And please feel free to type at any time into the chat box. I will pay attention and try to answer questions, but I will also give you opportunity to ask questions. I'm going to turn off my video so I don't distract myself, but just know I'm here. I'm a real person and I'm here to help. The things that we're going to talk through today, this is going to be repeated with each time. We're going to talk about signing in. We're going to talk about the disconnected workflow. We'll look at the map layer. In this case right now, it's the site plans layer. And I'm going to demonstrate it on the iPad. I'll try to give you a view of the iPhone as well. I know many of us use iPhones to collect data, and that's just fine. And then go over some reminders that we want to make sure you're keeping in mind. So just jumping in, a couple of things. I'm going to put 2 links in the chat box. These links are going to be repeated every time as well. The first link is this website. It's an APHIS public facing website, so anyone can access it any time of the day. All you need is a web browser. So it's an excellent place for you to look for training support. The training events page could be how some of you found your way here. It lists, if I scroll down, each pest program. There's Spotted Lanternfly surveys all in one. You can see we're going to have today's training. We're having another one on Thursday. These are identical trainings. So if you miss anything today and want to come back on Thursday, sounds great. You're welcome. And a third one, May 18th. Same thing. We're going to cover everything we can in one go. So that might have been how you found this. Going back to the main page, we're using the ArcGIS Field Maps application. You can find information on that under general training documents. See here it is listed. There's a user guide that you can read on. And then the video gallery has under foundations, of course you can search by title as well, 10 self-paced videos that can take you through just getting comfortable with the application itself. Thirdly, the pest program specific training documents also lists each pest that we're supporting by name, Spotted Lanternfly, and here's that surveys all in one. There's a user manual. For each of you, your states will have a different name or as the title of the map. So this ST would be replaced by your state's abbreviation for each map title. There's a user manual and a quick reference. I've opened the user manual here because I wanted to show you that you can leap to the sections right here on the main page or from the table of contents. We're starting with site plans. So if I just click on that, it leaps right to site plans and you can get all of those steps, including what the layer is intended to collect as far as data and any limitations. So we'll talk about that more in a minute. Going back to our main page, the bottom half, as already referenced, is a video gallery. And the video gallery is going to contain today's training. Give me about a week or so to produce it and get it approved, and it will appear here. It gets categorized under PEST programs, and you can search by title, but it should show up as the newest right at the top, kind of where you see this mobile link sign-in video. So it'll be here for your reference later. The second link I put in the chat is this quiz. And no matter what part applies to you, don't worry, you won't have to answer questions on a part of this training that doesn't apply to you. It will ask you whether you are collecting data on, for instance, treatments. If you say no, you don't get any questions on it. So this quiz will apply no matter which part of Spotted Lanternfly surveys you participate in. Please use it for whatever. It's not required, but it does help you out. I'm just going to scroll down to question 3 here. This is where you input your email address, and when you submit this quiz, you will get an automated email that says you completed this training. Maybe that makes you feel proud of yourself. Maybe you put it in a folder. Maybe your supervisor would like to know that. In any case, type carefully here because it uses your entry to send that email. And also, finally, it gives me some metrics to go on. It lets me know that what I share with you, you're hearing and can respond to. So this is here for you in the chat box now. Because it covers all aspects of training, if you intend to remain here for all of them, just wait it out. Feel free to open it up, answer the questions as you find the answers. Whatever works for you, it's really here to help test your knowledge and make sure that the information sinks in. So that's there for you. So just jumping into field maps, it is an application meant for field use, and its intention is to be used while you are disconnected from Wi-Fi. And that is the case with Spotted Lanternfly as well. We'll talk about that workflow a little bit, but I want to talk about what it looks like to sign in. Your first screen signing in when you first open Field Maps looks something like this. In fact, it looks exactly like this, not something like. You have some options, but we're always going to tap this Sign in with ArcGIS Enterprise option. That is an enterprise portal which is secured by FedRAMP security, allows for PII or personal information, private information to be entered. So as federal collectors, we are going to sign in using ArcGIS Enterprise. Then you'll get these options. The bottom 2 options show up the first time. You can either specify a new URL or scan code. We specify a new URL, so that's what you'll choose the first time. That opens up a text box and your keyboard, and you will carefully type in the URL address to our MRP Enterprise portal. And what you're seeing here, I'm going to give it a little arrow, is a URL that was already typed in, and Field Maps saves that for me. So this is after I've already signed in the past. Now I have this URL that I can just go ahead and tap with my finger and sign in that way. Now, that being described, we have 2 URLs that are helpful to you to know. This is a question on the quiz as well, so just FYI. Our main portal is the one we just saw, this MRP on top, this maps.mrp.usda. And that is what we call the production portal, and that is where your official data should be collected. But also my team, the End User Tools Group, creates a training version to allow you just to play and practice. Today, I will use that training version as a demo version. And what's important to note, I'll give this a couple of little red boxes, is the difference. So when we sign in and type in that URL, to collect official data in the field, we'll type in this top one. maps.mrp. And in order to play around, we'll type in this maps-stg, or think of it as stage.mrp, etc. We just want to be careful that official data is input into the official one and training or play data stays in the training map, not vice versa. So we don't want play data in the real map. So this is something you want to just keep track of when you're signing in. If you're in doubt, sign out. I'll show you that in the demo portion. And just be sure that you're in the right map. The training maps have the advantage of kind of giving you some tips. For instance, the title of a training map starts with training in all capitals, and the base map is this kind of boring light gray, whereas our official maps have brilliant imagery. I'll show you that as well. The disconnected workflow is important to us. It is, number one, the way that the app is supposed to work. And I'm just going to ask you to humor me and try to stay on the path. It requires some data prep. This red box here, it asks for you to, well connected to Wi-Fi, download an area of interest to your device. And then disconnect from Wi-Fi. I like this last bullet point. I call it a parking lot test. Just make sure it's working by your car before you take off out there into the field. And then many can use that same map area all season, or for the better part of a season, repeatedly. Just this prep is very important to start you off, and then you're kind of off to the races. Collect your data, come back at the end of the day, connect back to Wi-Fi, hit the sync button to synchronize that data. This data is a two-way synchronization. It's especially important because it pulls data updates into your map, but it also pushes the data you've collected up into that hosted map service in that enterprise portal. I always think maybe this is a good time to charge your device. Maybe you do that other ways. But that's the basics of that disconnected workflow. So that little twirly red box, that's the important part. And then the sync step daily is also very important. The data layers. Well, we kind of looked at this when we talked about how we're gonna tackle this training today. We're starting off with site plans today. That's at the very bottom of the list. I also want to point out this markup layer. At the top, this is an on-device layer. This is a part of the app itself. It's a default layer. It actually literally allows you to mark on the map, mark up the map. And just a couple of things to be careful with the markup layer if you choose to use it. It is not an official data collection layer. So data in it should not be official. Any official data should be entered into the comments in one of the layers below. And it is held in your device unless you find some way to share it. So, and thank you, Mary, there you go. Yes, I will share the quiz link again, no problem. And feel free to ping me anytime, folks, if you need those links again. So just be careful with the markup layer. The two things are not an official data collection layer, and secondly, that it is very difficult to share. Secondly, there is, as we mentioned earlier, a map notes and map areas layer. We're going to talk about that towards the end of this training today. Where you can add notes that are shared among everyone. So just be careful with that. But this is what your layers look like. And two of these, the historical data and the reference layers, are actually groups of layers. So once those are enabled, you'll get a whole list within them. Property assessment uses that site plans layer. And the first data entry uses an existing site plans layer for you as a reference. This is enabled for edits, as in the fields or the data connected with that parcel, you can edit, but you cannot edit in that you cannot add a new site plan area, and you can't adjust the area itself. That has to be done through a request with a GIS field specialist. So firstly, you can edit the site plan parcel, the data behind it, but most of you will probably continue by activities on those site plans, which are going to look like contacts on the property. So let's have a look at what that looks like. I'm just going to open up my iPad and give you that view. And I've got my phone here. I hope I remember to show you that too. So this is my PPQ iPad. Let's open up Field Maps. And Field Maps, as you can see, did not ask me to sign in. It held on to a previous sign in, and it pulled me right into the last map I was looking at, which is BTM. So I'm going to go back 2 times to the main maps page. And it's still loading a little bit, but you can see the titles all start with training. So I'm getting a good idea that I'm in the stage portal. I also know I signed into the stage portal, but these are nice little hints, aren't they? And the thumbnails I've now loaded with the photos, all of those say training on them too, or most of them do. So that gives you some good hints. But if I was unsure, I could go to my profile, scroll up and sign out, and then sign back into the appropriate enterprise portal. In this case, I'm good, so I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to look for my SLF surveys, and we know there's nationwide visual surveys. That is to indicate no positive population. So the visual surveys that are indicating positives would be all in this joint survey map, but we're looking at site plans, right? So here we are, the training version of the SLF survey. And this ST indicates that this is good for all states. Your state abbreviation will show up there in our official production map. So in the case that you might be Pennsylvania, it would say SLF PA survey right there in the title. So let's open that. I can see I have an offline area already downloaded. In fact, I have 2 because the site plans layer that I've been provided is in Pennsylvania. I've downloaded a map area there in Pennsylvania. And then I've also downloaded one here in Windsor, which is where I live. So this is actually going to show my geographic location. But I thought I would make sure that you have a view so that you can see the site plans layer. I am also connected to Wi-Fi still, and I've done that on purpose so that you can see what's going on here. I've got listed the online map, and then I have the 2 offline maps on my device that I have downloaded previously. If I needed to, right now, I'm connected to Wi-Fi, I can go ahead and add an offline area. And I can also now disconnect from Wi-Fi and go out into the field. I might do a parking lot test just to be sure, but I can do that and I'll have remaining these 2 on the device. I'm going to open up the Pennsylvania offline map just so that we see that. And right along the top right, we have some icons. This 2-way arrow is your sync icon, and that tells me I'm in an offline map because at the end of the day, that's the button I want to press to synchronize my data. Let's tap that. We want to make sure that the auto sync is not on or disabled. And in order to turn it on, I would toggle this switch. And we want that off because we want you synchronizing data when you are in control of that Wi-Fi connection. Devices don't always know just how strong that connection is, and we don't want that interrupted. So make sure that auto sync is off. We don't have any pending edits, but later in just a few moments, we will have a list here, and we would tap this blue button to sync if we did. Then we have this kind of stack of papers, which is your layers menu. And this looks just like that slide, except for I actually have visual surveys enabled as well. I'm going to turn that layer off just by tapping. And we can see that I've got the site plans layer on. So that's good. That's what we want to talk about today. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. Now that we know that the site plans layer is enabled, another handy tool is found in this 3-dot or overflow menu. I'm going to tap that and we can tap legend. Now that tells us what each of these colors mean in the site plans layer. And if I had other layers enabled, we could scroll up and see what all of those symbols mean as well. We can see we've got a lot of yellow here, so you know, we could find that on our legend and try to figure that out. I can also scroll in and kind of find some other colors and think about what those mean. Okay, so that's the legend. Finally, There are two steps to site plans, right? You might feel the need to edit a parcel, and then you may need to perform an activity. Let's start with the edit side of it. So I'm kind of scrolled in on this little purple parcel. In order to edit something, I need to select the parcel, and I do that just by tapping. And as I just showed you, I might use my fingers to scroll in and out a little bit. That opens a view version of the data behind this parcel, and we can tell what's selected based on this little blue outline. But you may also check that by the parcel ID just to be sure you have the correct one selected. And then in order to edit, we can tap on this pencil icon at the bottom. Everybody knows the pencil to be edit, or scroll up until you find the option to edit, also the pencil. I'm going to tap edit. And that opens this form up for editing. That means all of the fields here can be changed unless they are hard-coded, like the calculated acres. So let's say I found that the ownership is not private but public. I can change that. There we go, public. And now I'm going to submit that edit by tapping submit. That's how you may edit a parcel in the site plans layer provided to your state. You are, as I said, not able to edit the size or the shape of that or add a new parcel without asking your local field GIS specialist for some help. But now let's say we want to perform an activity. Just for the sake of the demo, let's choose a different parcel. So let's say we're working over here in this yellow parcel. In order to perform an activity, which is a contact to that owner, property owner, I'm going to again select that parcel. Again, it shows it is selected with that blue around it. And you might check the parcel ID just to be sure you have the correct selection. In order to access the activity table, the related table to that parcel, you can either tap this little link icon at the bottom, or again, if we scroll down, we're going to find the option to site plan activities, which is that link. And I can go ahead and select that. And we want to add a site plan activity. So we're going to tap add. Any previous activities will be listed here. I don't have any yet, but you may. I'm going to hit add, which opens a little data form on that particular contact. And we're going to go ahead and enter data here. You will follow survey protocol. I'm just going to I'm going to follow Jenny protocol, but some of these have a little asterisk after them. That means they are required fields. And we can see the agency was pulled in as a default. If I need to change that, I can tap and choose another option. I'm going to say I'm an academic institution, just so you see that change. Site activity, I'm going to say first attempt. Activity date, this one gets me a lot. The calendar view opens up and allows you to choose a date. It is restricted to this year. If I go back, I can't really pick anything previous to. What happens to me is sometimes I pick a date by accident, when I'm scrolling, and I can go back to today by tapping today. And then I like to close this by tapping that again to close that calendar view. Surveyor name, I'll put in Jenny Sauer. Activity comments, well, we're just playing here, so I'm just going to make sure this says test, and then I will hit submit. And there we go. We again have an option to edit within the activity itself. That edit option is there. Let's say we were looking for, I'm going to click off of it and come back to it just so you can see what that looks like. So in order to edit an activity, we know we were working on this parcel and there was an attempt made, but actually it was the second attempt and we need to change something there. Select that parcel, select the activity, choose that activity that we entered. There it is in the list now. That's the one we just did together a minute ago. Go ahead and select that and select edit. And now that is open for us to make a change. So let's say it was actually yesterday. I can change that date to yesterday, close that up, give it one more check over and submit. And you can see site plans is fairly intuitive, pretty easy to deal with. One thing that's changed now, closing this all up, is the sync button. Now we have a little dot on the outgoing arrow. And what's that's telling us is that we have some edits that are saved to our device. So in order to sync that, I would just go ahead and open it up and hit that sync button. Quickly, I want to show you what that looks like on the iPhone, because I know many of you use that. Here is my iPhone. And just for fun, to give you another view, I am signed in my iPhone to the production portal. So you don't see training in any of these titles or in any of these thumbnails. And what I've done is I've opened up the SLF. Let's see, I've opened up the New York survey, the New York State survey, but I'm not going to look at New York. That only New York should look at New York. I have an offline area here in Windsor, Colorado. So this shouldn't show you any sensitive information. And there's my offline area. It says New York in parentheses, but I'm actually here in Colorado, so you won't see New York data. And this is what that base map looks like. See the difference here between this light gray in the training or stage version and pretty vivid imagery here in our production or official map. So everything else looks the same. One thing that can be really helpful, if I go ahead and go to add data, the data form takes up half the page, but you can decide to pull that up or all the way down so that you've got a map view. So play with that a little bit just to make sure you've got that map view. Otherwise, it really behaves the same, just a smaller screen that's kind of sharing space. All righty, moving right along as fast as we can, right? Just a couple of reminders. Remember official versus training. Make sure that you're signed into the correct and using the correct map. Use that disconnected data collection and be sure that you're syncing your data, both pulling in new stuff and pulling out yours into the enterprise hosted map service. Be extra careful of data collection, and this isn't meant to target anyone, probably myself over anyone. Just be extra careful to give those data forms one more look before hitting submit. The submit button, we didn't see fail today, but it will only fail if you have missed a required field. And it'll just give you a little message that there's an attribute failed, and it will prompt you with a little red required and tell you which one. So if the submit button fails to go through, it'll give you messaging that kind of steps you through what to do next. Getting help, that's important, right? We talked through some things really fast with site plans, property assessment. We know that you need to go to your National Operations Manager for anything survey protocol related. And for that, it's Erica Willey here on the call. Any iPad or iPhone, any device issues, go to CECIT for that support. If you have issues with access to the maps, access to the portal at all, any field maps application weirdness, start with your supervisor. Always go in this order. Start there. Your supervisor may also reach out to your field GIS specialist. So even in the case of where, for instance, you want to add a site plan or a parcel there in that layer, that would start with your supervisor and then the field GIS specialist. There is also an email address here your supervisor may reach out to, which is answered by a group, which can help with some oddity that we haven't discussed here today. And everything training, go to that mobile data collections tools webpage first. If it's not there, please let us know. We want to make sure that you have everything that you need in one spot. So we've talked over some things really fast, signing in, the disconnected workflow, and we walk through using that site plans layer to make an edit and also to add an activity of contact. Test yourselves. I'm going to put these links in the chat one more time for everyone here in the meeting. So both the mobile data collection tools webpage and the quiz itself, be sure that you test yourself on this stuff while it's fresh. And with that said, I'm going to leave a little bit of time for questions, and we'll have a quick transition over to talking about treatments. Any questions on property assessment and the site plans layers? Okie doke. Well, I'm going to take 2 minutes to have a drink of water, and then we will start on treatment points and areas. So take 2 minutes, 1 minute now, sorry, and we'll run right back into it. All right, we're back. I'm going to try to make this quick as well. And since most of you are staying on, hopefully I don't have to repeat myself too much. But welcome to the second of 4. Let's talk about spotted lanternfly surveys, all in one map. But now let's talk about the layers that collect data on treatment points and areas. So welcome to anyone new. We're just going to dig right in. Objectives, they're the same as our last. We're going to talk really fast through signing in, what that looks like, the disconnected workflow, map layers involved, and a demonstration and some reminders. Just that simple. ArcGIS Field Maps is meant to collect data while disconnected. It starts off by asking you to decide between sign-ins. We're going to always tap sign in with ArcGIS Enterprise. That is our federally secured portal. And so we'll tap that, and then we see these options. Specify a new URL is what we will select and manually type in that URL. After the first time though, Field Maps does hang on to the URL. And here's an example of that. Something to take a special note of is these 2 URLs. So we collect data in this top one, and just a reminder, this is a test question on your quiz. We collect data in this top one. I'm going to give you these 2 boxes again. The difference there is the top one says maps.mrp, the bottom says maps-stg.mrp, meaning stage. So you want to be very careful that if you are collecting official data, that you're using this official portal as your sign-in. And we have an option of a training map, and you can tell that by the title and the base map. The training map looks a little different and has training in all caps in the title, but it's just really important that you sign in properly and enter the correct data in the correct portal. So we'll have a look at that, but just basically, when in doubt, sign out is a good rule of thumb. The disconnected mode workflow. Well, we talked through this already, and this red box is the important part that helps you prep for your journey. Like if you're going on a road trip, you want to bring snacks and plan out your route. Well, we're going on a field data collection trip, so we want to make sure that we've downloaded a map area while we're connected to Wi-Fi to use while disconnected out in the field. Just to dig in a tiny bit on why disconnected workflow is so important. The app itself was designed to be used this way. And secondly, it allows you to disregard any intermittent connection. I know even for some of our cell phone users, it becomes really normal for us to become dependent on that cellular data to keep us connected, but it doesn't always work as expected. Even in an urban setting, I've walked between buildings and had an interruption in connection. So we don't want that when we're out there trying to collect data in the field. So it's a more reliable way to collect data. Also, on the occasion, and I hate to even mention it, but sometimes our servers are down or experiencing bugs. And if you are collecting data in an offline map, it does not affect you whatsoever. And you just go about your business of collecting data. You might stop the data sync for the day, or you might have a delay on that, but you can keep collecting your data without interruption. So that's a big strength. Finally, and I guess, am I on number 4 for why to do this? Kind of like your mom would say, if everyone was doing it, if everyone was collecting data while live, it is pinging the server constantly with every movement. And so it's putting an unnecessary strain on that server. So it's just a kindness to everyone else, and it keeps things moving fast. So the important part is the prep. And then finally, this data sync, which pulls data in that updates your map and pushes all of your data collection out. All right, and the data layers. So this time we're looking at the treatments layers. And this is also a group, it's grouped together. So if I enable this treatments group, I've got 2 layers. One is treatment points and one is treatment areas. As you might expect, the points is a single point and the area creates a polygon on the screen. All right, so what does this look like? Well, let's start with the treatment points layer. It is meant to record the location and eventual treatment of a single tree. If the treatment is performed on a treatment point, then all the treatment related fields should be completed, but they are not required when the point is first assessed. This is the information I have from your survey protocol. I'm also told that assessments happen year round, while most treatments occur between April and October, and egg mass treatments occur during the winter and are recorded in a separate map. So it's one thing that's not in this map, right? And then treatment areas are used to record the location of an area that is planned for treatment. The treatment areas also have an activity table which records repeated treatments performed on that single area. So let's start by looking at the treatment points, which, if you remember, I just said is a treatment. It records the location and eventual treatment of a single tree. So let's start there. Let's look at the iPad and have a look at what that looks like. I'm going to go ahead and close this out. And remember, we go back to the main page to find that map. And there is my survey, SLF survey map with offline areas. So I'm going to go ahead and open that. Again, I'm asking myself, is this official data? No, this is play training data. This is just a demonstration. So I'm in the right map, the training version, and I'm going to go ahead and this time I'm going to open the Windsor offline area that I created because this is where I am. So that's a little bit easier to show. And actively speaking, that is my GIS point. That is the GPS showing where I am. That's that blue point there. And you can see I've been playing around a little bit. There's some points there. Again, we have the sync button. Auto sync is off. We have a layers list. In this case, we're going to talk about trap sites. So I'm going to turn off visual surveys and open the trap site. Sorry, treatments is what we're talking about, right? I'm going to open treatments. And in that treatments group, we have two layers. I'm going to open them both just so you see them. So the points and areas, I will enable both of those and kind of scrunch it down again. You can see I've got one of each sitting there that I've practiced with. I'm going to turn off site plans. I don't have that layer here in Colorado, so I'm not even going to bother with that, and close that up. And again, the three dot or overflow menu allows me to open a legend so I can see what this means on the map. I can see that I have an insecticide treatment area, and the point that I have is mechanical removal. So I can tap on the map or I can close that up. So we're talking about points. Again, to record the location and eventual treatment of a single tree. All right, so let's do that by hitting the add button. And let's do unassigned. I'm going to pull that out a little bit so you can see it and update the point there. There you go. So there's our point. We again have a data form. If we have an asterisk, that means it is required. I'm going to go ahead and fill this out, skipping those that are not required and tapping today and closing it. Assessment by, I'll put my name, and it corrected it for me. I'll say 5 and done. Customer information is a group of questions that are available to you but not required. Treatment details, also not required. Chemical details, a group of questions there, also not required. Supplemental treatment details, same, a nice list of questions there if you know the answers. And treatment comments, and I'm just going to say test, that's what we're doing here. Data QC details, these are populated later, so those are also not required here. Okay, I'm going to look at that form and hit submit. And that's really it for a treatment site. If I needed to and wanted to, I have the option to edit these. Again, with that pencil, I can go ahead and tap pencil with that selected, make an edit. What I'll do is I'll change this to academic institution for the agency and then tap submit. And I've made an edit to that treatment point. Now, treatment areas, remember, are a little different. The treatment area is used to record the location of an area planned for treatment. So here I have an area I've already created. One tip, I like to start at the point, so physically start where you are going to start drawing a perimeter of an area. So what I'm going to do is tap Add. Let's do, again, unassigned for the area. See how it started me where I am? So I'm going to go ahead and allow, let's see, I'm going to allow that point. So you'll start drawing the perimeter by hitting Add Point, move, walk to the next point, tap Add Point. Just going to give it a little triangle here, and it tries to close your box. Maybe that's not it. So I'm going to keep walking and make an area like that, Add Point. And now we have an area that I've drawn first. I'm going to go ahead and close that up officially. And then the same thing, we have a data form to fill out on that area. I'm going to go ahead and put in quickly today's date, my name. Oops, if I know my name, that would help, right? I'm not going to fill out the rest. Again, we have customer information as a group that you can open and complete. I'm going to call that a day for the treatment area, but you would check this over and make sure you're following survey protocol and then hit submit. That's the treatment area. Now, let's say we're returning to perform a treatment and we want to record that activity. We would select the area on the map to open that data form. And then the link button, or scrolling up to that little treatment area activities form, allows us to add an activity. We can see all the previous activities. So previously I played around with this and I did a bark spray on the 9th of March. To add another activity, we tap Add and we complete that data form. I'm going to go ahead and do that quickly with today's date, and the treatment is done by me, and leave the agency. Chemical details, though, you can see has that little asterisk as required. So there is a required field here. Again, I realize I'm not completing things correctly. And supplemental treatment details also has optional fields. I'll close that up. And then under the comments, I'm going to say test just to make sure that's clear. And QC details, again, are not filled out by us, so those are optional. Check over your data form and hit submit. Again, we have the same options for editing here, both in the activities form and in that main area. So if we go all the way back to closing everything, select the area and tap that pencil to edit. If you want to get to the activities menu, go ahead in there, choose the activity to edit. I'll go into bark spray, tap that pencil, go ahead and make the changes you need to. Maybe it wasn't bark spray. Let's make it hack and squirt, and then submit. And now that those areas, both points and the area itself and an activity on the area and an edit was all done, we have some things to synchronize here. Tap your sync button and then tap sync now. Same view on the iPhone quickly. We're looking at the same view here. I'm going to hit cancel so that you can see the layers. I can open treatments, scroll up, enable points and areas, exit out of there. Again, I am not in my training map. I am in the official portal, so we don't see this data. We would see data collected officially here, and we would go through the same steps to add and edit just like we did on the iPad, except for with a smaller screen. Okay, a couple of reminders. We looked at the points and areas layers. We added things to each of these together, and we performed activities and edited. The same reminders every time. I know I feel like a little broken record, but be sure you're in the correct URL, that you have signed in to the correct MRP Enterprise portal. Be sure you're entering real data in the official site and only playing around in the training version like we are today. Be sure you sign out if you're in doubt. Use that disconnected data collection workflow. We talked about the reasons why. Make sure you're performing that daily data sync. You don't want to hold data on your device You want to make sure that that is shared up to that hosted map service. Be extra careful with your data collection. I know I went really fast today, but always just taking that one more moment just to look over that form. I can't tell you how many times I've found a dumb error on my own data entry. And the submit button will show a fail if you miss a required field. So just know that about things. One more time with some getting help options, because you can't have enough of this, I know. Be sure that you're well appraised of survey protocol, and the person to contact regarding that is your National Operations Manager. Erica Willey is acting in that position now. Please feel free to reach out to Erica. I am definitely not up on survey protocol, so the way that I enter this data is really just meant to give you a how-to, but be sure that you're aware of that. If you need help with a device, go to CECIT for that. If you need help with access to these maps or anything related, please start with your supervisor. They may go to your field GIS specialist supporting the area, and they may also email, or they may email this webgis.connect@usda.gov. Anything training related, please go to the Mobile Data Collection Tools webpage. I'm going to stick that in our chat box one more time just to make sure that's fresh for anyone who's joined. Be sure to check that out first, and if you need our help, please come to us. Let us know if something is not present there. Be sure to check your knowledge. We talked about signing in, the disconnected workflow, the map layers related to treatments, points, areas, and activities on those areas. And we went over some reminders, but be sure that you're quizzing yourself now while it's fresh in your mind. It'll just keep it a little bit, dig it in a little deeper into your brain as you're working through this. And I want to pause. That went really fast, but I want to ask again if there are any questions now, and we can accumulate. So if you've thought of questions on the site plans layer or the treatment points or areas layer, I would love to hear more about that, or if there's anything you'd like to see again. Feel free to raise your hand or type in the chat. What was the reason for turning auto sync off? Oh, that's a great one, Lindsay, and I'm thank you for asking that. So auto sync has your device deciding when to synchronize. And so if it finds that there is a Wi-Fi connection, it will automatically, as in auto, try to synchronize your data. It's quite possible that you've only just walked into a sort of okay Wi-Fi. And the biggest problem that we have with synchronization activities is an interrupted sync. So it would be really highly recommended. In fact, I almost want to say, please don't ever turn auto sync on. Let that synchronization happen when you, the user, know that you have connected to a reliable Wi-Fi network. Make sure that you are connected to Wi-Fi, make sure that you feel good about it, that you can watch that the sync occurred properly. Like in my case, I just hit sync, I'm in the basement. I know that it went through. I don't have that dot there anymore. And it says no pending edits. But if this is interrupted, it's such a mess and it's so difficult to sort out. And so it's just giving you like your best foot forward, Lindsay, is probably the best way to answer that. It's your best way to success in a synchronization. So I keep that off. Let you, the user, decide you are connected to a good Wi-Fi, and then you initiate a sync. So that's the reason there. Any other questions? Okay, well, we're going to have a better little break here. We're going to break all the way to 2:05. So you get a 15-minute break. I'm going to hang out and rest my voice. It's been a mess today for me, and drink some honey water or something. I don't know, gargle salt for 15 minutes. Take a bio break, get a snack, come back and meet me in 15, but feel free to add questions and I'm happy to try to answer them. So take your little break and we'll be back at 2:05 Eastern time. All right, all by my clock, that's 5 after the hour. So 2:05 Eastern time, I'm in Mountain Time, it's 12:05. Again, Jenny Sauer here. I'm a mobile solutions specialist with the End User Tools Group. We're here to talk about the Spotted Lanternfly survey. In parentheses, it says combined, but it's really just a bunch of surveys all in one map for your convenience. So we're talking about the survey types one at a time. It looks to me like all of you have stayed on, and so I'm going to try to spare you repeating too much, and I really appreciate your attention here, but we're moving on to the trapping surveys now. So I'm going to try to make that quick. I will put in the chat one more time our mobile data collection tool webpage. Just quickly, that page looks like this, and the top half has, under pest program specific training documents, a user manual. I'm going back to the top of it, which will allow you to jump to each data collection layer right here from the main page or from the table of contents. So we're going to talk about trapping. I can go ahead and go collect data trapping and skip right to that to see the intention of the layer and get screenshots on each step. But I'm going to also show you that. So just bear that in mind as an option. And again, this video is being recorded, and it will show up as a video here under the video gallery so that you can review this training later. So I'm really hoping that what I've covered earlier, I don't have to repeat too extensively because of that. The second link here is the training quiz. I've been getting notifications that many of you are completing this, so you must be pros. I really appreciate that. If you haven't, please feel free to test your knowledge. Make sure that you answer this third question with the email address really carefully, because that's how you get that confirmation email that you've completed this, this training. So that said, let's jump into trapping a little bit. I'm going to talk about the same things that we did in the other topics. We're going to go over signing in to ArcGIS Field Maps really quickly. We're going to talk about the disconnected workflow and the map layers, and the big part that you really want is the demo. So it'll take me about 5 minutes to get to that, but we're going to get to it as fast as we can. And then talk over some reminders and answer any questions that you might have. So ArcGIS Field Maps is meant to be used in the field. There is a user guide that will take you through that on our mobile data collection tools website. There is also a self-paced video series. It's 10 short videos that I would recommend should complete as a prerequisite at least once, or pick and choose the ones that you might need reference on. Those are also on that same website listed for your review. When you first sign in, you're going to want to choose sign in with ArcGIS Enterprise. That is where our FedRAMP secure portal is. So we're going to choose Enterprise. Then we get the option to enter. We'll select specify a new URL, this middle option here, and we'll type that in. However, as you can see, there is already a URL listed here. So if you've typed one in before, Field Maps is going to hold on to that for you to choose from. And mentioning that URL, just as a review for most of you here, there are two that you want to be aware of. This is a question on the quiz. The official URL is this one. I'm just going to give you those red boxes to show you the difference. maps.mrp.usda is our official MRP GIS Enterprise portal. This is where official data is collected, but my team, the End User Tools Group team or group, creates an optional map for you just to play in. And that is housed here in the stage portal, maps-stg, or think of that as stage.mrp. This enterprise portal is a staging portal and allows you to play. Be very careful when you sign in that you are signing into the correct URL for the data that you're entering. Official data in the official URL, training or play or practice in the stage URL. And I'll show you what that looks like. Again, our training maps start with training in all caps, so there's a little hint for you. And the base map is kind of a boring light gray, so it's not too hard to tell the difference. The disconnected workflow depends on the prep, what's in this red box. And just like going on a road trip, you pack what you need for that road trip. In this case, what you need to pack while connected to Wi-Fi is a map area, an offline area to your device. And once that's done, you can disconnect from Wi-Fi and make sure it's working in the parking lot. That's what this little bullet point says. Go on out, collect data, come back at the end of the day, connect to that Wi-Fi, and perform a daily data sync. So that red box is important, and the daily data sync is important as far as that workflow. The data layers, we're talking about trapping now. So we're on to the trap sites layer. This trap sites layer also has an associated activity table. And so I just want to give you a visual for how that works out. On your first visit to a location, that visit is placing the trap and the data connected to that point on the map. So that first visit will place the GPS coordinates and a symbol on the map itself for that trap. And it will ask you to fill out data on that location. Included on that data form is an install date. So it is inferring that that first visit you are installing a trap. And then all future visits are connected to that original trap site. You'll select that symbol on the map to open that data form. You'll look for an activity table link in order to add data on the activity performed that day. All future visits are recorded in an activity table. Something that kind of gets us mixed up sometimes is when we have to relocate a trap. And if you think it through, I think every one of us here, it makes sense to us. But the original trap, for whatever reason, may need no longer be appropriate for that spot. You'll need to enter a data entry activity of remove trap. Something that happens with our data team overnight is there is an automated script that's running on that activity. If an entry is added, an activity that says remove trap, that script will recognize that and will overnight update the symbol to show that trap as inactive. So a lot of us might think, well, I've removed the trap, so it should disappear off the map. And that is not the case. It's in fact very appropriate that that symbol remains on the map with the last activity being removed, right? So it should remain, and overnight, when you perform that daily data sync, that's going to pull that in from the night before. The symbol on the map, and we'll look at this, so don't worry, I'll show you what that looks like, will change to inactive. Then I've got a little dotted line, you walk to the new location, and you start afresh with our normal place that trap, and future activities happen to that location. So just wanted to go over that. All right, so we're looking at the trap sites layer and the trap activities table that is related to those trap sites. So let's have a look on the iPad. Let's see what that looks like. Here is my PPQ iPad, and I'm going to open Field Maps. Again, Field Maps has saved my sign-in from previously and pulled me right into the last map I was looking at, which happens to be SLF surveys. It's an offline map area here in my town of Windsor, Colorado. I'm going to go back 2 times to that main maps page. I'm seeing training everywhere. If I needed to sign out once again, I could go to the profile and select sign out. We're all good though. We can play this. This is a training map. I'm going to open the SLF survey map, and I'm going to open the Windsor offline map area. And again, we have the sync button. I'm just going to check to be sure the auto sync is off. Good. And I'm going to open the layers and select the layers that I would like to collect data in. I don't need the treatments layers, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that whole group off. I do need the trap sites layer, so I'm going to go ahead and select that layer to turn it on. And you can see I do have a few trap sites here. With that layer selected, I'm going to close that, and let's look at the legend, which I opened here in this overflow menu, the 3 dots, and then I selected legend. So you can see that the legend tells us that the trap site begins as a current trap site, which is a purple triangle. And then this one, this yellow diamond means that it's due, and this little minus in the red circle means it's inactive, and I have one of each on the screen. So if we were talking about that relocation workflow, that inactive trap, this one right here, should have the last activity that says it was removed, right? But there it is, inactive. So in order to view that, I can select that trap, and I can open the activities table, and sure enough, the last activity is remove. So that is the way that should look. But let's say we want to add a new trap. I'm going to exit out of all of that. To add data, we tap the add button. And all of the layers that are enabled are showing up here. So we do have some treatment areas, but what we want to choose is the trap sites layer. So I'm going to go ahead and tap current. I'm going to add a new trap site. And it added it right underneath me. I'm going to pull that away just so you can see it and move the point, update the point over there. So see, there's the point that we've added, that purple triangle there. Then we have same thing as the others. The form that opens has some required fields, some that are not. I'm going to go ahead and begin entering data. I'll leave this as today by tapping today and then closing it. The agency was defaulted to APHIS. I could change that if I wanted to. I'll say private contractor. The site name, I'm going to go ahead and name this according to my protocol. You would name this according to survey protocol. We can choose the trap host from a list. And the habitat is not required, but I can choose that from a list as well. I'm going to go ahead. I'm looking for residential. There we are. And we've got low, medium, and high risk. I'll say low. It's asking for diameter at breast height, the trap type, and lure type. Of course, I know this doesn't make any sense. I'm just kind of entering data. And site comments, I'm going to say test. There we go. Review my form and submit. So now I've placed that trap site. It leaves it open as selected with the data form in a view form. If I were to need to edit, I could by tapping the pencil. And so just for the sake of demo, I'm going to go to this one that's due and tap that. Let's say we're going to perform a trap activity on this one that's due. So we're going to go ahead and look for the activity table, which is linked by this link icon. Or I could scroll up to the bottom where I find the trap activities link and tap that to open it. I can see the whole history of this trap site, which isn't very much, but I'm just playing around here. And in order to add an activity, I'll tap add. And again, I'll fill out this form. I'm going to skip surveyor so you see what happens. I'm going to, let's replace and refresh lure. I'm going to make sure the comments indicate this is a test. That's today, and close that up. There is a group of questions here called pest status details that I want to answer, which has a lot of information. The pest status, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say undetermined, and I'm going to give one of these a change. So I just select it and make a change and hit done. Field sample taken is also important. If it starts off with no, but if you go ahead and change that to yes, you get another question here. You're asked to enter the field sample ID. I'm going to leave that as no. And then the data QC details group of questions is also optional and filled out outside of us, so we don't need to worry about that too much. So I'm going to review this trap activity. Let's see, I feel okay about it. Some of you are probably a little bit worried about that one I missed. I'm going to go ahead and tap submit. Just see what happens. And it let it go through, but it shouldn't. So this is something that you probably won't see. I'm going to go ahead and edit this and add it. And let's try that out. I think maybe because this is a training version, we're not getting that. I'm going to go ahead and submit it correctly. Let's do that with a main trap site. So if we go to place a new trap, let's try that. And I'll hit current. And let's say I miss the install date, but I get everything else. I'm going to do this real quick. Give that a 3. Y'all don't make fun of me for doing terrible data entry. I don't know your survey protocol, so I'm just trying to get it done. So let's go ahead and we'll update the point right there and hit submit. And remember, we were missing a field, that first field. So this is what I'm looking for. When submit fails, it's because you're missing a required field. And if I tap view, it's going to go ahead and pull that down for me and show me in red which one was required. So that's what happens when you miss a required field, or what should happen. I'm going to say today, and now I can hit submit, and it's happy to do that. So let's say we have to go in and change something, or an edit needs to be made because something was incorrect. Similarly, we're going to select that trap site. I'm going to go ahead and choose this guy. And then we'll choose this pencil or edit. So we can scroll up and find that edit option too, which opens that data form to edit. So let's say we didn't enter the habitat, but we do want to enter it as a ball field. And now we're going to go ahead and submit that. And now the change that we have here to the sync button is pretty obvious. We've got a dot that says what needs to go out is important, and we go ahead and sync now. Okay, now one thing to point out, we took care of this due trap, right? But remember, that is an automation that's happening overnight. So the symbol still says it's due. But tomorrow morning, when we press that sync button, even though we don't have anything on this list from our side going out, when we tap sync, it also pulls that update into our map. So it's a good idea to go ahead and sync in the morning, even if you don't have edits waiting to go out. It also pulls those updates in. So if I were to do this tomorrow morning in the production portal, if I was really out there collecting official data and I tap sync in the morning, we would expect that trap symbol to go back to current, which would be this one, right? The purple triangle, and it would update that symbol. So that's what we're looking for there as being part of an automated process. Let's see, Mary Margaret asks, oh, perfect, Mary Margaret, thank you. Will the trap status change to current or due based on the last activity? And the answer is yes. And that happens overnight based on that automated script that's running by the data folks. And so it changes to due 14 days after a trap activity is entered. And it changes back to current when you've serviced it overnight. So that's what happens there. Great question and perfect timing, Mary Margaret. Thank you. All right, so we looked at those layers. The reminders are the same every time. Be careful that you're in the right URL, that you're putting official data in the official URL. And if you're playing around like we are today, that you're in the training map. Be sure that you're using that disconnected workflow. And as we discovered today in updating those activities, it's especially important with the trapping surveys that you perform that daily data sync in the morning before you go out. So you've got updated symbology and all the information there, and in the evening after you have data to submit. Be extra careful with data collection. That submit button fails if you've missed a required field. But if you're being careful, you pretty much won't get that message, right? If I had looked over my form, I would see that I was missing something. And again, I'm the worst offender here. I very often will even misspell my own name. So, you know, automated help is helpful, but it's always good to give it one more look. This getting help page, I just love to give you any possible way to get extra help. Erica Willey is your acting National Operations Manager. So you saw me just willy-nilly entering data, and that is not how you should be doing things. You should have survey protocol help, and that would be Erica if you have any questions. Device issues, go to CECIT. Access to these maps or the portal at all and establishing a role, or maybe the field maps application behaving weirdly for you. Follow this in this order. Start with your supervisor. Your supervisor is your ultimate support who reaches out to all kinds of others. So be sure that you've gone to your supervisor first. They might reach out to the local field GIS specialist supporting your area. They may also email this email address, webgis.connect@usda.gov, for more answers. Anything relating to training, remember that mobile data collection tools web page, check there first. If it's not there, please let us know. We want to make sure that things are at your fingertips and easy to find. And so if you need something there, please let us know, but also feel free to reach out to us. We talked about the same things for each layer. Hopefully this is really sinking in. Signing in, the disconnected workflow, the map layers themselves. In this case with trapping, there is a trapping layer and then an activity table for all the activities that occur to those trap sites. And we demonstrated that and went over some of the reminders. Again, don't forget there is a quiz to test yourself. Make sure that you're making use of that. And I'm just going to pause now to ask if there are any questions specific to trapping or trap activities, but any questions regarding site plans or treatment areas or points are also welcome. So I'll just pause to let you, if you want to raise your hand or speak out or type that in the chat or anything I could show you again, I'm happy to do so. Wow, you guys are paying such good attention. I love these students. Well, I'm going to hang out, and what we're going to do is we're going to take a 9-minute break. So we'll come back at 2:35 Eastern time, and then we're going to talk about the last topic, which is, I'll give it a little box around, visual surveys. Visual surveys are pretty simple. We're also going to talk about a neat couple of layers that were added that allow you to add notes, map notes points and map notes areas. So if you'd like to take a little 9-minute break, little bio break, I don't want to tell you how to move your body, but a couple jumping jacks could be in order for me, just to get my body moving a little bit. And then we'll meet back at 2:35 Eastern time. Thanks all. I'll give you some music too, so I hope I won't scare you. Here it comes. Welcome back to the End User Tools Present Spotted Lanternfly data collection using ArcGIS Field Maps. We're going to talk about visual surveys, and it's pretty easy. And I just want to say thank you all for hanging with me. I hope the breaks have helped you catch up. I know it's really hard when you got emails coming in and other things to do. So just a big thank you for staying with me on this. And it won't take long to go through visual surveys. So if you have any questions, keep them in mind, keep them coming. Feel free to interrupt. So we're just going to jump into visual surveys and this cool little map notes points areas. I want to just review quickly your 2 links in the chat box, and I'll put them in there one more time just so they're fresh for you. So this mobile data collection tools website is available to you all the time. Be sure that you're making use of the training events schedule, general training documents, specifically on field maps. There's a user guide. The PEST program specific training documents, there's a real nice user manual there for Spotted Lanternfly survey. You can jump to each layer and find out how to use it properly if you like. There is a layer on wetlands, which we're not covering, but it is editable. So if you need to know more about that, that's there in the user guide. I'm told it's not that common or lesser used, and it's not as important, but there it is. So if you want to learn how to edit wetlands, it's right here for you. You can jump right to it. And again, not program required, is right there at the top, and some of the step throughs for how to do that. But today we're going to talk about visual surveys. Again, the second link there is the quiz. I'm seeing lots of you are doing splendidly on that, so congratulations. If you haven't yet, here it is, the quiz link for you. And we're just going to jump right on into talking about this visual survey. We're going to talk about the same topics, how to sign in, the disconnected workflow we're going to go through quickly, and then we're going to look at those map layers, and I'll give you a little demo on how to use them and some reminders. So Field Maps starts off by asking you to sign in. You're going to get this screen. You want to choose sign in with ArcGIS Enterprise. And then you're going to have to specify a new URL, tap specify a new URL, and type in with care that URL. However, as you can see here, Field Maps does try to help you out. So if you've previously typed in a URL, it will hold on to that for you to choose from, and you can just tap the URL. We want to be especially careful of which URL because we have 2 where we host maps that help you with SLF surveys. So SLF surveys official map is held in this top URL. I'll give you these little boxes to help you out. The maps.mrp and the training version, which we're going to use to demonstrate things and play around in today, is in the staging portal maps-stg or stage.mrp. So be very careful that if you are entering real data, you are in the official site, this URL at the top. And if in doubt, sign out. The disconnected workflow starts with you preparing a tiny bit by downloading a map area. I've prepared for this training by doing that myself, but I'm also going to stay connected to Wi-Fi to show you what that looks like and how you might download another map area. Then you go on out, well disconnected, collect data, and synchronize at the end of the day once you've connected back to Wi-Fi. All right, so that's the important one, and the sync is the important one. All right, we're moving right down the list, and the order of the list in the map itself is a little out of order. I thought I'd just cover this a little bit with you. Areas have to be at the bottom of the list, lines and points at the top. So they're not alphabetized because of the order of these layers. If you think about them stacking like paper, like this little icon shows. So that's why visual is at the top. Visual surveys are points. So they're going to be at the top of the list of layers, but that doesn't mean anything in particular other than just how they're displayed. And so that's important to note. All right, so we have all the same layers to look at, but let's dive into the visual surveys layer, and then we'll have a look at the map notes, points, and areas as well briefly if they might help you. Okay, so here is my PPQ iPad once again. I'm going to open Field Maps by tapping that icon, and it's going to pull me all the way into the last map we looked at. I'm going to go back twice to show that main map page again. When you first sign into the stage portal, you will be presented with this view. These training maps are shared with you by a group, so you'll have access to the PPQ EUT training group, and that will give you all these same maps in this staging portal. And as you can see as it loads, it's pretty obvious. The titles of the maps and the thumbnails say training, but if you need to sign in, go to your profile, scroll up, tap sign out and sign on out and sign in properly. We know that we're okay to play around today because we're in this training map area. We're in the stage portal. Everything's good. And I have offline areas already downloaded. I can see that this PPQ SLF survey map has offline areas. Also in the official production portal, this little this ST in brackets would say your state. So each state has their own map. So if you're, for instance, in New York, that would say NY. In Pennsylvania, it would say PA. In the training version, though, this is all fake data. I'll do finger quotes, fake data. And so that doesn't matter so much. Okay, let's open it up and have a look. I'm going to open up the offline area in Windsor. I am connected to Wi-Fi, so we are seeing the online map as well. If I needed to, while I'm connected to Wi-Fi, I can go ahead and add another offline area for my use. I don't need another one, so I'm not going to do that. But if I disconnect from Wi-Fi, these two on-device maps will remain and the online map disappears for me. Let's open the Windsor offline area. Again, we have a sync button here, and if we tap that, we want to make sure auto sync is off and we have no pending edits. So before we leave for the day, we would want to sync that app and make sure that we're pulling in any updates back from that online hosted map service and pushing out any pending edits here both. This kind of stack of papers is your layers menu. We are now moving on to visual. So I'm going to disable the trap sites layer and enable the visual surveys layer. Previously too, some of you may have noticed, but the treatments layer is actually a group, and then it has points and areas. And so if we disable the area, it removes them from sight, but it shows up later in your legend. I'm going to go ahead and disable those as well because I don't even want to see them in the legend. And then if I go ahead and open the legend here in the 3-dot or overflow menu, and then tap legend, it's only going to show the enabled layers. So that in this case is the visual surveys layer. And you can see I've played around. There's a couple points there that are negative. And if we saw a red triangle or a yellow circle, that would be positive or undetermined. So that kind of tells you what those points mean on the map. And if we want to add a visual survey, we're going to tap the add button, lower right. And then we'll choose from those 3 options to start with, positive, negative, or undetermined. Well, we already have 2 negative. Let's try undetermined, just for the sake of difference. And it's placed the point just under me. You probably noticed that turned red for a moment. I'm in my basement. The crosshairs and the blue circle are indicating I am meeting GPS accuracy when it's blue and red when I'm not. And it's doing pretty good in the basement, but it's kind of faltering a little. And it also tells you to what point it's meeting that accuracy. We are limited to, it has to meet 30 feet accuracy. So I'm just under that right now. I'm going to update the point as I've been doing, kind of out and away from me, so you can see it outside of the crosshairs and outside of my little blue dot, which is my location. And so we're adding data to this little yellow dot on the map. I've just pulled it out so you could see it. And the data form has required fields indicated by these stars or asterisks. You can see survey comments is not required, and it pulls in information as default that you can change if needed, such as the agency field. So if I tap that, I can change it. I'll say something else just for the sake of argument. Surveyor is your name. I'll type that in. Site name. I'm going to give this a number, which is just how I do when I'm testing things out. And I think I'm on 1, 2, 3. Host. And I'm going to say that. And survey comments, even though it is not required, I'm going to give it test. I'm going to leave survey date. The pest status details is a section that is required and is pre-populated. So all the fields are filled out already, but if you need to change something, tap on it, back it up, and make the change. Also grouped is the data QC details, which are typically not something we need to fill in. Okay, so we all know I missed one. I'm going to hit submit. And I get an error. If I need to know what is an error, I can hit view. It pulls the required field up to the top and I can complete it. All right, so I've got today's date. If for some reason I accidentally tap another day, I can tap today to return me, and I can tap the field to close that calendar. Then I'll check over my data form and tap submit. Maybe another one should have been a positive, for instance, one of these negative points. So let's say we need to edit that. I'm going to tap that point on the map to select it. Make sure I've got the right one, probably by site name. Maybe you have another way to be sure of that, but be sure you've got the right one. Sometimes there's many points kind of all in one spot and you can get confused pretty easily. In order to edit that visual survey, I'm going to tap the pencil at the bottom, or I could scroll down on the form until I find that pencil again, which means edit. So I'll tap edit. And let's see here, maybe I need to change that pest status. And this is going to happen pretty quickly. So I'm going to change it to positive. And if I pull away, you can see that symbol changed immediately from a negative to a positive symbol. So I've got a red triangle now instead of a green square. And now I can go ahead and submit that change. And ta-da! And that's really all there is to the visual surveys, but there's a couple of other tools here now for you to add notes to if you like. If I open the layers menu, just want to point out some grouped layers. There is historical data. If I enable that group, there's historical visual survey positives, trap sites from last year, treatment points from last year that you can enable. I'm in Colorado, so enabling these isn't going to show me anything. But to enable, you just toggle that switch on or off. I'm going to leave that off for now. And then there's also a reference layers group. So let's open that and have a look. There's map notes points, map notes areas, and that wetlands layer, which I mentioned a little earlier, is editable. Let's enable the map notes points and areas both and have a look at those. You probably noticed a couple things pop in here. I'm going to go ahead and show you the legend for this again. So the reference layers has map notes points and map notes areas. And the points themselves are, and areas both, are categorized under a hazard or information. And the thing to note about these map notes layers is that they are shared across all. So this is a way for you to share things either for yourself in the field, but also just take note, make sure that what you're putting here is appropriate. So let's go ahead and Let's add a map node's points. And in order to do that with the layer enabled, we tap add. And let's say we're going to add a hazard. So the hazard that I'd like to add, I'm going to move this point over. There's a little footpath here that I like to indicate, and I'll add the point there. So now you see we've got a little red question mark, and that type is hazard, and the comment is foot bridge with lots of activity. So maybe this matters. Can I spell? There we go. Lots of activity, and then the date and time. And then we go ahead and hit submit. Just an idea. Maybe that's a hazard. Maybe you don't want to work there and have visual surveys. Maybe you do. Another idea might be, I'll select this info option. It just says it's a school. Maybe you need to know where there's parking. Maybe you need to know where there's a school. There's a nice little park over here, Founders Green. Maybe you want to locate a nice shady spot for lunch or for a break. Maybe you want to indicate a dog with a hazard. That's kind of a problem. Maybe there's a field that seems empty and there's a bull there that you need to be aware of. So these are things that you can add. And so this added it as a point. The map nodes areas, add them as an area. So you can draw an area on the map. Let's say, similar to treatment areas, you tap each point until you have a little perimeter, and it recognizes that. And then you go ahead and enter the info. I'm going to say great neighbors. It's my neighborhood. There we go, and done, and the date, and then submit that. And the thing really to take away is this is meant to kind of help you do your job, and just be careful because it is shared across everyone. So when I go ahead and synchronize, I'm going to see the hazard point and that info area that I added, because that's being shared with everyone. So be especially careful of those points when you do that. Okay, I have a question here from Yvette. How do open site again? I'm thinking you mean in order to edit, Yvette. So if we were looking at a visual survey and we wanted to open that, you find the survey on the map, select it by tapping, and you might need to scroll in or out just to be sure you're on the right one. So go ahead and tap that to select it, and you can tell it's selected because it gets this little blue kind of halo around it. And then the data form opens to the left. And that data form might help you too, depending on how you want to search for this, but I have a site name here, so test 3. Okay, that's the right one. And then we tap the pencil at the bottom here, which means edit, or scroll up on that data form, you'll find that edit option again with the pencil. Just, oops. I've already tapped, now I've tapped on the map, which deselects, so I'm going to tap that point again. I'm going to tap the pencil, and now I can edit that location. So let's say the host was maybe a different host. I got that wrong. It's a grape. I can change that to grape, and then I have to go ahead and submit that change. Yep. Yeah, so if you have a problem with selection or something like that, my recommendation would be to close out of Field Maps entirely. For me on an iPad, that's the home button, double tap, and then that shows what's running in the background. Swipe up and away, and that's actually closed. I might restart my iPad as well, turn it off and back on, and come back to it. Typically, that's not something I run into a lot, so it might just be an iPad issue. If you continue to have that problem, that's a ticket to CECIT. All right, so back to it. We talked about visual surveys, and we dove in a little bit into those map notes, points and areas. Again, the big takeaways as reminders: be careful that you're in the right map. Real data in the real official MRP portal, and training data only in the staging portal, only in training maps. So just be careful you're entering data in the right spot. Please be sure that you're preparing well so that you can be out in the field disconnected collecting data, and be sure to collect those, use that daily data sync to bring in updates to your maps and push your updates up to that hosted map service. Be careful with data collection. You saw me miss a required field, and that creates a submit button messaging that says it's failed. But just give it one more look. It's worth the extra moment that it takes to kind of check yourself. Getting help. Erica Willey is your acting National Operations Manager. So everything survey protocol, go to Erica. She'll have the answers. Today, very clearly, I don't have an education on survey protocol. I'm just here to help you understand how to enter the data into the app, but Erica will help you if you need help with that. Like we mentioned a little bit earlier with poor Yvette, if you're having trouble with the iPad, go to CECIT or iPhones. I should have iPhones there too, devices that you're using. If you need access or a role in the portal to start with so that you can collect data, make sure that you follow this order. Always start with your supervisor. Your supervisor is your first point of contact. If needed, they might move on to the local field GIS specialist supporting your area. They might email this webgis.connect@usda.gov for more information and more support. And for all things training, all things end user tools group, that's the EUTG, that's what that means. Be sure that you check first the mobile data collection tools webpage. If it's not there, we want to know. We want to make sure that the answers are there easy for you. So we talked over again with the visual surveys, signing in, the disconnected workflow. We looked at those map layers live, and I went through, you and I together entered data that was play training data in part of a demo, and we talked over those reminders. If you haven't yet, please be sure to take that quiz. I'm going to slip those links in the chat one more time just so that they're handy for you. That's the last time, I promise. I'm not going to ask you to do that again. And finally, last but not least, for those of you who have hung in there, questions are welcome on all layers of this survey map. So that's site plans, that's treatment points and areas, that's trapping, that's, what did we just do, visual, and including map notes points and map notes areas. Any questions at all? Or is there anything that you'd like to see again on any of the layers? I'm happy to show it one more time. There is also, we mentioned it earlier in the day, but the nationwide visual surveys, which is intended to collect negatives only. And the visual that we showed today is intended to collect where there is a positive expectation within the state. So there's that also as a separate map. And then there's also an egg mass treatments map that is separate, but otherwise everything has been covered in this one map today. So many of you are collecting data clearly on all 4 of these avenues, and I thank you for your patience. I know we had a lot of repeats, and I hope it wasn't too terrible to hear them again and again, but now I know that you guys are the pros on those things that you had to hear 4 times. So thank you all for being here. As always, feel free to reach out anytime with feedback, ideas, thoughts, questions, anything at all. I'm happy to help, and my team is here to make sure that you find success and feel confident collecting data with SLF surveys. So thank you all very much. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for listening, and good luck out there.